turn a sinner's stable to a Bible tent. It's a hell of a place to be heaven sent. It's Gainesville bound for me.
Gainesville has always been somewhat of a music town. Most famously, it produced Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and a few members of the Eagles. But despite its most famous musical sons, it's never been in Athens or in Austin. The main reason is that none of the famous acts ever stuck around or stuck up for it. Lying smack dab in the center of Florida, the Spanish moss-draped swampy town has been a stewing and simmering pot full of talented musicians for years. Many of those acts came up in the punk scene in the 80s and 90s, centered at legendary venues like the Hardback. Others capitalized on the college rock and jam band circuit, playing regularly at the Covered Dish. These eras have already been documented fairly extensively, but there was a distinct movement of independent music that flourished in the 2000s that has hardly been mentioned outside intimate local circles. While speaking with other Gainesville music community members about this era, I was able to pinpoint an exact starting point in early 2003. Indie rock was in its full throes. MTV2 was making stars out of quirky, melodic songwriters. Labels like Sub Pop, Barsuck, and Polyvinyl gave us a visible line on the horizon to set our courses for. In Gainesville, a series of independent but cosmically linked events took place that launched hundreds of bands to play thousands of shows at dozens of local venues. One of those events was the launching of GainesvilleBands.com, a no-frills, text-based forum to discuss music, promote shows, and meet other people in the scene. Started by Sean Gliffer Dalton, an avid music lover and techie, as a personal tool to monitor when and where shows were happening. It wasn't designed to be a public resource. After enjoying its convenience and ease, he began to share it publicly by leaving business cards around venues. Word of mouth sent its existence amongst bands like wildfire. It had an exhaustive list of active bands and a complete calendar of shows. An active band meant the band had played a show in the month preceding. You couldn't be listed as an active band without proof that you were playing. In fact, we tried to get listed before having any shows and were turned down. At one point in the mid-2000s, there were 250 active bands in Gainesville, which at the time had a population of 109,146 people, according to 2000 census data. Add the 50,000 UF students in the greater Gainesville area, let's assume there were about 250,000 people living here. If we further assume that each active band had 3 unique members, meaning no overlap with other bands, that means that 1 in every 333 people in town was in a band. That's astounding. GainesvilleBands.com was the only way to network as a band in town. MySpace didn't even exist yet. No one was streaming audio or video. It was literally just text. Another way to hype up your band was flyering. The city erected a dozen or so flyer pillars between campus and downtown. If you timed it right, you could plaster all of them to maximize exposure to the college students a day or two before your show. Frequently, they'd be removed within the same day or covered over within hours. The theory of flyering was that if you played frequently enough, people would start to recognize your band name from the flyers and eventually come out to a show. Flyers had to be interesting enough to catch the eye and have the band name big enough to be spotted from a distance. Jason Rockhill became the default flyer guy, making iconic clip art collages to advertise for Common Ground shows. While we, as many other musicians, came primarily for the university, that began to change in the mid-2000s. Many people started coming to Gainesville just to start a band. Many brought their bands from back home and rechristened themselves Gainesville bands. Somehow being from Gainesville was going to be a stamp of legitimacy. Out-of-town bands wanted to play here. They needed it. Orlando bands in particular, frequently self-labeled the next big thing, couldn't consider themselves worthy unless they also played in Gainesville. Fortunately for us, we were already here and playing out, so many of these new bands looked up to us as foundational members of the music community. Throughout this project, I'm going to do my best to explain how that happened. In starting this project, I quickly realized that I could never create an exhaustive and definitive history of music in Gainesville in the 2000s. Instead, I would like to bring you through the evolution and development of what I'm calling the Gainesville music community in the 2002 to 2013 era, as told through the eyes of Morningbell. This is not a story about Morningbell, but one about the fertile environment in which we grew and thrived, along with many other extremely talented musicians.